Hello, everybody. My name's Rick McCutcheon. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. And today on Partner Talks, I have a returning guest, Jay McBain. Jay, introduce yourself and tell the people who you are and what you do.
Sure, absolutely. Great to be back. I've been in the industry for 30 years. All 30 of those years have been involved in the channel. And so I worked closely with Microsoft since the very early days of the PC industry. And, think about channels and partnerships, alliances, ecosystems. I work for Canalys, which happens to be the largest channel analyst firm in the world. And it's Latin for channel. So this is kind of all we do is think about partnerships. Think about the major platform players like Microsoft and others, and see if we can figure things out.
And for those watching today who are Microsoft partners, you make sure that you follow Jay on LinkedIn and Canalys, because I've got to say, from a channel perspective, that's information that you need to know. So, Jay, we wanted to kind of jump into things, and we just got done a very busy year in 2024. So maybe you can give us a little bit of insights and what did you see around the Microsoft channels?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft continues to make news only almost on a daily basis. From an industry perspective, which Microsoft has, kind of been around since the very, beginning, August the 12th, 1981, that first launch with MS-DOS on that first IBM PC. But suffice it to say that the industry is shaping up into eras. We all lived, through client server from that, it could have been in the late 70s with Apple resellers and education, but most people would say the formation of the channel was really around the IBM, Microsoft, and then Compaq, Cisco kind of channel of the 80s. That being said, client server was really a 20-year era. That kicked off in 1999, a small company out of San Francisco, Salesforce.com, started with a big software with a line through it. This is kind of where business applications got their day in the sun. Since then, the SaaS industry's grown to $420 billion. That's the market that Dynamics competes in. The marketing, the sales, the finance, the operations, all of the line of business leaders and companies in those areas, ServiceNow, Workday, Marketo, NetSuite, HubSpot, have all kind of grown 20 to 30% every quarter since, 1999. 12 years later, we had the era of infrastructure, which was AWS, and then shortly after Google and Azure. But the cloud era really ran 20 years. In March of 2023, really ChatGPT kicked off this consumer trend of AI. And now we're kind of modeling it as the next 20-year era. So if you think about your channel businesses, we got into the 80s or 90s in the client server era. Think about a channel business in the cloud, SaaS, or infrastructure era. And now you think about a channel business in this new 20-year era. It is kind of interesting. Microsoft's leading a lot of these conversations. Obviously, very close to OpenAI, obviously very close to how these consumption, micro-consumption, agentic AI world is going to play out. Microsoft, both, their people, their programs, obviously their technology silos are all playing a really big role.
So when we start to look at this next era of AI, that's kind of pulling us forward very quickly. From a channel partner perspective, what I'm hearing from our customers and what I'm hearing from other Microsoft channel partners is that the clients are having a difficult time catching up, right? Even though they're 20 years into the last era, a lot of organizations, especially SMB organizations, mid-market organizations, aren't there yet or aren't in shape to be able to make that jump.
Yeah, let me make a couple of, really good examples around that change led by Microsoft. One is that, we remember in those early SaaS days where software was eating the world. And it was true. The software was leading all industries and kind of all thinking. And the tech industry has basically outgrown every other industry, since that time. And will continue for the next 10 years. But right now, Microsoft is on record, on TV, and Satya's, kind of running around talking about AI eating software. This idea of CRUD databases, these SaaS, top heavy type of things, each of us with, 1,000 passwords that we need to remember, is going away to now a headless world where co-pilots, agentic AI and other things are going to be using the data, but so much of it is not going to be top down. It's going to be from the data up. So this is a new world. And this is this phase of AI that we're in, early phase. Like if you move out of the consumer stuff, which is kind of cool, when our neighbors and friends who are not tech people, saw the poetry and the music and the deep fakes and stuff, they came to us as tech people and said, hey, did we just light up Skynet? And, when is Arnold Schwarzenegger coming back and those types of things? But really what the business side of it is, how do we get more efficient? You see layoffs happening every day where companies are blaming, kind of AI, saying that we can do things more efficiently. And that's the phase we're going through. But the promise of AI, which is really the relationship change between us and our banks, our governments, our big airlines, all the big industries, the relationship changes a lot when our co-pilot talks to their co-pilot, and there are no apps on our phone anymore. There are no, logins. It's a bunch of data working together, a tech integrated world that connects all the dots in our private and professional lives. So that's the 10 to 20 year vision of AI. And when Bill Gates said in 1996 that we overestimate what's going to happen in 2 years and underestimate 10, we're going through that right now, because in March next month, we're at the 2-year anniversary of this kind of AI 20-year era. And we're not seeing the system integrators. We're not seeing the big ISVs or the big MSPs or VARs putting up big numbers connected to AI. It's actually been a rough environment because it's been a slow start, much to what Bill said.
Do you think the slow start is because of the data? Do you think that's the big hill we have to climb first, that whether we're prepared to or our customers prepared to do it, it's the next thing we've got to tackle?
Yeah, it's all about data. So the data, for example, that sits out in the marketing and sales and CX side of Dynamics is easy to start thinking about workflows and processes, think about new business logic around how I can do things bigger, better. And now I've got a generative AI tools that can kind of really rethink how this works. That's been the easy part of AI. It is kind of thinking through how I make every job role becomes a little bit better. But the harder part of AI, like we're talking about relationship changes, do you know where the data sits in airlines, banks, governments? It doesn't sit on PCs, and it doesn't sit, in the public cloud today. 83% of it sits on premises. And a lot of it sits on, mainframes in those industries I just mentioned. Still, your 40, 50-year history of your relationships, sit on mainframes. It sits on old EMC storage racks, but it sits out at the edge. So partners are, maybe managing those, storage and compute and networking, and whether it's managed or not. The fact of the matter is that's where the show is going to happen. Microsoft, along with AWS and Google, have all publicly stated to their partners, we don't have room to forklift that data, because you've got to cleanse it. You've got to index, train, tune, infer. There's so much to do with that data. It's not going to be done on a mainframe. The additional storage and the data lakes are going to be created. And you're seeing companies have a new day, like Snowflake and Datadog and Cloudera, MongoDB, and all these companies are having a moment, because to get some of this business data from the edge into some of these models in the early stages, very early stages, is infrastructure that's not going to show up in Azure. And it's infrastructure that's going to show up in somewhere in co-located, hybrid, virtualized, or more likely, kind of closer to the customer and the edge than we thought.
So are we going to see the vendors struggle with selling new licenses when the spend is really, really going to need to go to moving everything off of on-premise to the cloud and getting data into the shape we need it in to be able to work with it?
Yeah. So first of all, nobody really sells or wants to sell licenses anymore. And you see kind of Microsoft shutting down 23 ways to buy licenses.
Yes. Well, there's still quite a few.
Well, they're quickly converting 23 different ways to do traditional license and maintenance into subscriptions, now into consumption, which they're becoming a utility company, like your electric or your water company. So they can sell it as consumption, but the agentic AI models, we've now seen 1,000 of them be introduced in the last 60 days. This is all these companies that have spent a fortune with NVIDIA, creating NVIDIA, overtook Microsoft as the most valuable company in the world. But their boards have said, you need to monetize this. We don't know how you're going to extract value, because if this is a new feature that you're going to give away with your current subscription, we're not fiduciary comfortable with you investing this much. This $7 trillion build out of AI, we need to get value for that. So the biggest, argument now, this whole headless SaaS or AI eating the software industry, is how much is going to move from subscription to consumption and now micro consumption. So I'll just use some examples that are out there. Salesforce Agentforce, which has been very vocal. Mark Benioff has been taking shots at Microsoft almost on a daily basis. Now, this whole idea is that Agentforce runs on $2 per conversation. Zendesk runs $1 per resolution. There's a company that runs, 50 cents per photo retouched. It's micro consumption. So this idea that, if I pay $150 a month for a Salesforce subscription, and now I'm getting extra value, that it's going to answer a phone call, a chatbot's going to solve a problem, and you're going to start charging me $2, every time that happens. A CFO at some point is going to go, I'm not going to pay you $300 a person, which it seems like you're charging me. So what I want is that subscription price to come down as the micro consumption goes up. So I might only be comfortable with $150 today. So you need to discount your subscription, and whatever you're going to charge me on this ongoing rate, I'm going to meter this really well. So FinOps is having a day as well as a new buyer that sits between finance and the IT department that really understands procurement and consumption of tech. So that's something for 2025 that the channel has to think a lot about, is as the price of dynamics will probably have to come down. And then the consumption and micro consumption on top of what the outcomes are of this new technology, this, the co-pilots and things like that are delivering real-time value that should be able to be measured. If you're saving a human hour, which costs, $40 or $50, and, Dynamics is executing that for $4, how do I arrange it from a FinOps perspective? How do I think about that? And how's that going to price in the future? But that's the next model. That's how we grow from here. Microsoft in the market, though, just reported earnings. They only grew 31% this time. And the funny thing was only in quotes, because every other company on the planet would love to have that problem. But they blamed the channel. And, the same day they created a new channel organization. Nobody knows where it reports to, but there's a European now that runs it. And, what does that do with Nicole and who report? But anyway, the whole point is they made a whole thing about the channel underperforming AI and causing, growth issues. Second thing Microsoft did in the last couple of months.
So just on that, Jay, most of the partners I talk to right now, and I'm close to a lot of them, are sitting on backlogs of professional services they can't even get to, right? Especially the cloud ERP people right now, moving at all these on-premise systems. So yeah, they may be failing at selling AI licenses, but they're very busy people.
Well, they are. And, that whole multiplier effect where there's $8.45 of services possible with every dollar of Microsoft, that's the $8.45 that are slowing people down. Like, customers have been slow, to get these professional services, the consulting, design, architecture, implementation, integration. Customers are slow as well. And by the way, the data isn't accessible. And there's so many issues that are, and this is the Bill Gates. This is what we kind of overestimated how quickly this would happen. But if you take a 10-year view, this is going to be the fastest growing industry. We have AI services at Canalys growing at 59.3% compounded. Massive. So the backlog we're going to start to eat into that backlog, and we're going to, see, trillions of dollars created in new opportunity around this. But time is the thing that humans are, kind of wrapped around, and it's slow.
Well, one partner described it to me as this: I've got to change the tires on this car while the car is moving, right? These businesses are all moving, they're all working, making money, making profits, and we're all telling them that you need all this new technology. And they're saying, yes, I understand, and I'm trying to get to it, but it's very difficult.
Yep. So here, let's switch gears a little bit. So
Okay.
Microsoft did, a senior executive world tour, and they would have taken their top 100 resellers in the world and went and had, a closed door NDA meeting with the board and played out the next 10 years. When I talked about, 23 kind of complicated contractual, Microsoft is looking to reduce its complexity and the amount of people that are out there negotiating these one by one contracts and all the, differences in each one to get it down to kind of one central MCA, type of agreement. When they told and played out this 10-year, this is a direct impact on resale. As they simplify, but as more of this becomes micro consumption and consumption, that's done through a marketplace. The credits that will come onto the Azure marketplace and the transaction, which is done at 3% fee or less, is much different than the two-tier distribution of license and maintenance and subscriptions that we've been in for 20 or 40 years. So after they did that, and not soon after they did that, their top two resellers in the world, Software One and Crayon, announced that they're coming together. So Software One's going to acquire Crayon. They came across Canada for that world tour, and their biggest reseller, SoftChoice, is getting acquired by WWT. So there's a lot of impact. So if I go across generalized resellers, not just Microsoft ones, like the CDWs and Insights, CDW just bought Mission Cloud, who was AWS's partner of the year. Insight, who's like a $20, $30 billion reseller, just bought Google Cloud's partner of the year 7 times over and bought ServiceNow's partner of the year. They're telling Wall Street that, the direction we're heading is not to resell more of Microsoft, which is kind of going away in the next 10 years. These new models are not friendly to resell. But we're going to go after these companies that go after the $8 multiplier. And again, they're picking up partners of the year. Presidio just bought ServiceNow's partner of the year. So on top of these big, huge combinations, we're now seeing this difference of moving from margin to multiplier. The margins are collapsed.
In my world, I'm seeing all the mid-sized business application partners being consumed by the bigger partners. Exactly what you're saying. Over the last 3 years, there's hardly any partners with 50 to 200 people working there. They've all been absorbed by these bigger partners. So we see it at that level as well.
And there's a nuance here because there's a list of Microsoft partners, like top to down, they have a whole spreadsheet. You can guarantee that by revenue, in other words, by resell, here are our top partners from 1 to, 400,000. Then the secondary column they now have, they're measuring 96% of their deals in Dynamics that are partner assisted. So there's 7 partners on average around a deal, mid-size or larger deal, according to McKinsey. Microsoft's actually the number 1 company in the world that changed their program to a point system to recognize that. Our Canalys research in the last couple of months, it's now the number 1 thing partners are asking, not only Microsoft, but everybody. Cisco just hired Rodney Clark from Microsoft and have announced their collapse of the gold, silver, bronze, and they've gone into a point system. So this whole idea of a point system recognizes the great work Microsoft partners do that are listening. The marketing, co-selling, co-marketing you're doing with them, the co-innovation and co-development that you're doing with them, the co-keeping, but the consulting, the design, the implementations, the integration, managed services, like there's this $8 multiplier. And really where Microsoft wants to go, and most of the conversations that I hear in public, our partners of the year are not the ones that have that biggest resell number. Our partners of the year are the ones that earn $4 for every dollar we do. We want to celebrate our multiplier partners. And those are the ones I get called by private equity, 12 times a day. Can you give me a list of those ones? Because it's proprietary. And all they point to is like the partners of the year. A lot of the ones recognize, like they're small. They don't seem, like to be a household name. but all of a sudden they're being offered $1 bajillion by CDW or something in a purchase. And that's why, because that's how they're telling Wall Street who they want to become. And what Wall Street, if they can take their $30 billion business, which is massive, Fortune-sized company, and add 10 cents to their valuation on all of it because they've got a better vision. And that's what they did. Insight, for example, after those 2 acquisitions, outgrew Microsoft on the stock market for like 3 years because they were showing, we're not that $20 billion reseller. Look, we're more of a multiplier company. And we're going to be earning a couple of dollars, $2, $3 for every dollar Microsoft does. We're going to do that profitably. We're going to do that sticky. Microsoft's going to love it because they get customers for life. They can deliver their 108% retention, which they told Wall Street that they're going to go do. Everybody wins. And by the way, the one that wins the most is the customer.
I think so. So Jay, if I'm a Microsoft partner that has not been acquired yet, and I'm still sitting on this backload of work trying to get people to the cloud, what do I need to do in 2025 to adjust my business going forward?
Well, I think, first of all, figure out how you built this backlog and go build 10x more, and build it in a way, with the profitability, because it's supply and demand at this point. A lot of partners I see aren't charging enough. They're still thinking in the old world of value added resell, like kind of adding, things. In this new world, there's a competition for talent. If I look in the world at who's certified with Microsoft and with OpenAI in AI, and who has the capacity and capabilities, it's a very short list. If I then go and ask in cybersecurity, who's got the deeper skills and who can go, make all this work and alleviate the customer's fears, which are real life fears. I started asking about talent. And I said, I got to go start competing for that talent at that level. And if I'm a mid-sized partner, I might be competing with Accenture, one of those people. But if one of those people ends up costing $200,000 or $300,000, I better be making sure that my billing out to the customer represents a big GSI or a big McKinsey, Boston Consulting type of price, which, by the way, are all in 7 figures. They won't pick up the phone unless it's a 7-figure engagement. And we're still in the channel thinking, oh, maybe I could get 30 grand for that engagement. Maybe I could get 10 grand if I could send that person there for a day or two. I mean, we're not thinking top down. And in this AI and cyber and all these other opportunities that are out there, data, how many Snowflake experts in the world, how many people can take this business data and work the next 10 years? This is the way I'm thinking. I'm building more pipeline, but I got to build more capacity and capabilities to deliver it. And then I want to shout from the rooftops, because at the point that I make enough revenue and make enough growth, I would love to sell off, at 10 times revenue to one of these big players. And by the way, after my 1 or 2 year compete is over, rinse and repeat, go do it again.
And we're seeing that now. We're also seeing a lot of the partners deliver projects on a subscription basis, where we're saying, I'll take care of your, CRM, ERP, and business applications for X dollars per annum. And I think the customers are beginning to like this.
Which, by the way, is managed services.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, managed services this year will be $610 billion out of our $5 trillion industry. It is 1.5 times larger than the SaaS industry. All of the Dynamics and Salesforce and ServiceNow, 250,000 companies, 1.5 times larger. It is 1.5 times larger than all the hyperscale market. AWS plus Microsoft plus Google plus Alibaba plus Oracle plus IBM. You take all the hyperscalers on the planet, managed services is 1.5 times larger. 82% of customers want it. And it's not just to fix their PC on a predictable level or take help desk calls. Manage my CRM, manage my ERP, manage my marketing, manage, which has all the AI and cyber and all the linkage in it. And if I could do that on a predictable basis, my FinOps team, financial ops team, will be ecstatic if that can become more predictable.
And it may be the first time in history they didn't have a budget overrun in this area.
Well, that's what it is. So these are sticky. They're very valuable from an acquisition perspective. The more subscription revenue you have, that's worth 2, 3, 4x of what resell revenue or project-based revenue is worth. So again, I'm architecting how to build a bigger set of sticky, profitable business. I'm trying to architect how that'll be more predictable, reliable, repeatable, scalable. And then I'm trying to shout from the mountaintops at the right time to make sure I get the piece of glass, partner of the year, or I get recognition for a time where I can actually cash out for all that hard work. Like, we're not working 100-hour weeks here, 80-hour work weeks for fun. And we're not going to go public. We're not going to IPO our, mid-sized Microsoft business. So, it doesn't mean you have to run a company for 30 or 40 years. You can go in 5 to 7 year spurts, like venture capital thinks about it. Create yourself generational wealth for not only you, but your employees. Work your 2 years and rinse and repeat. You could do that 3 or 4 times during your career and create generational wealth 4 or 5 times.
Absolutely. Jay, I got to thank you. Every time we do this, it's a great conversation, and I can't wait till the next one. So I want to thank you very much for your time today. And I want to tell my viewers, you've got to follow Jay on LinkedIn and hear these types of messages on an ongoing basis. So, sir, thanks for your time, and we'll be back to you again in the near future to find out more about the channel.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.